What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Financial Freedom Fastlane. And remember, the quicker you get to your dream life, the longer you get to live it. And I'm your host, George Ashenpong. And on today's episode, we're going to break down the wealth building trifecta, the 3 asset classes you must own in the order you should prioritize them to build more wealth in 2026 and beyond. So when it comes to wealth building, there's always conversations around what is the best way to invest. Should I buy stocks? Should I buy real estate? Should I do private equity? Should I do venture capital? And I'm here to share with you my framework on building more wealth in 2026 and the reason you should follow this approach if you want to achieve financial freedom faster. The first part of the wealth building trifecta is investing in the stock market, but doing it in a very particular way. What you want to do is you want to purchase globally diversified exchange traded funds, and you want to have that make up about 60 to 70% of your portfolio. That way, you don't have to worry about what all the individual performing stocks are going to do. Are they going to win? Are they going to lose? And ultimately, you are allowing the fund managers and the portfolio managers in these massive investment institutions who spend tens of millions of dollars every single year putting together these funds, do all the heavy lifting while all you have to do is copy the right cat. So what do I mean? Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, all these companies, they spend all this money every year deciding how they're going to structure these various ETFs, index funds, mutual funds that they manage. Ultimately, all you have to do a little bit of research and ultimately click the buy button and then add these ETFs or index funds or mutual funds to your portfolio. Now, that is going to give you a base layer and a foundation on how to build wealth without having to understand the success or the potential success of every individual holding. That does not mean that we don't expect or desire to have funds inside of our portfolio that will outperform the market, but it does mean we don't want to put so much stake or risk in getting it right with having 100% of our portfolio made up of individual stocks. So instead, we make sure that our portfolio is made up of ETFs, mutual funds, and or index funds to take away some of the risk and ultimately give us the position to win in the markets. Now, what you can do is you can take it a step further and you can look inside of these indexes, look inside of these ETFs. You can actually go over to ChatGPT and you can say, hey, ChatGPT, can you tell me the top performing holdings inside of this particular ETF? Then from there, when it gives you that list, do some more research and say, based upon the current macroeconomic environment, which of these companies are slated to continue to do well? They're not going to give you financial advice, but you can get some pretty decent research on them, take it a step further and say, you know what, with 20 to 30% of my portfolio, are there some individual companies that I want to own so that I can have the potential to outperform the market? And that is going to give you the opportunity to have your stock portfolio that's going to provide liquidity, right? Because the great thing about the stock market is you can buy and sell those holdings very easily. There's very minimal barrier to entry. So if you need access to that capital, especially if it's in a brokerage account, that's easy for you to do. It's going to hedge against inflation. And that is going to be the primary use case for this particular assets that you're investing in. In addition to the things I just mentioned, you also want to use this portfolio to borrow against it to then be able to buy the next asset class that I'm about to talk about. Because personally, I think the stock market is a great tool for liquidity. I think it's great for hedging against inflation, all those things. I don't think it's the most streamlined, right? Or the best tool when it comes to cash flow. Because when you think about the 4% rule, you have to have so much money invested in order to distribute an amount that will actually benefit you in your day-to-day life. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad approach. I'm just saying for those of us who feel like we're a little bit more behind, maybe we can follow a blueprint that allows us to leverage the stock market for its liquidity and appreciation, but not necessarily for its cash flow. And so now when we borrow against that portfolio, we want to use that money to then buy businesses, right? We want to venture into the world of private equity. So the first asset class is investing in stocks. The second is private equity. Why does private equity come second? When you think about investing in the stock market, in the most fundamental sense, you are essentially buying a small piece of a company. And the only reason why you get an opportunity to buy that company is because that company went public. The real investors, the people who make the real money, are the people who own the business before it ever went public. And going public is simply the liquidity event to create that liquidity for the original investors and owner. Not to say that you still can't be successful and build wealth in the public markets, but ultimately, if you have the opportunity to invest in private equity, you're going to get closer to the source. And that's the whole thing that you want to pay attention to investing. Like, what is the source? If I'm investing in the stock market, I'm buying a few shares, right? Maybe even hundreds of shares of a very large company. But if I can own that company, right? If I can get as close to ownership as possible, that's probably going to put me in the best position to maximize my wealth. So the reason why private equity comes second is because we invest in the markets for that liquidity, for that hedge against inflation and the appreciation, but it also gives us the ability to borrow against it, get access to capital, to use some of that capital to then buy into businesses that we have maybe deeper ownership stakes in, like private equity. And this could be a variety of different business types. It could be a laundromat, it could be a car wash, it could be a home service business, it could be a lawn care business, whatever the case may be. But ultimately, by doing this second, you have one asset that's growing and thriving while you borrow against it without creating a taxable event. Use that money to buy the private equity business, and then that is going to be a very high cash flow business. My firm recommendation is that if you're trying to build this in a way that doesn't involve you and it's more an asset that you own instead of a business that you run, then you want to make sure that you're buying a business that has enough margin to be able to put an operator in place, and then you as the owner can just continue to take seller's discretionary earnings and or distributions from that business while the business is being ran by someone else. That is going to be your cash cow. That's going to continue to create cash flow. That's going to be the thing that really can put you in position to retire early if you desire to do that. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this video, or if you're anybody like I know, you don't want to work unnecessarily long. And so we have to be investing in ways that create more cash flow in order for us to do that. So you invest in private equity, get that cash flow. And then the third part of this trifecta is real estate. So this is exactly essentially what I did. Now, my strategy was a little bit different because technically the business that I own and operate is a privately held business for all intents and purposes. And so that technically that was my first biggest asset. But then I took my discretionary earnings that I had and I bought stock. Then as those stocks grew, I borrowed against that to then invest in private equity, other businesses that I own but don't run. And then now I'm making a play at real estate. The reason why I didn't go heavy on real estate early is because for me, I know that real estate is primarily a tax game and a wealth preservation game. Ultimately, it can be a cash flow game, but it's a longer process before that plays out. And so for me, when you look at these different asset classes, yes, they can serve multiple purposes, but you got to ask yourself, what is the main purpose that this asset is going to serve in your strategy? For me, with stocks and bonds, it's all about liquidity. It's all about appreciation. It's all about hedging against inflation, and it's about leverage. I want to be able to leverage against that portfolio. So if I had to pick one, or I would say 1 to 2, hedging against inflation and leverage. I need something that I can invest in, low barrier to entry, and then I can ultimately leverage that asset to buy more. That's my purpose for investing in stocks. My purpose for investing in private equity primarily is cash flow. I want to build as much cash flow as possible. Obviously, my long-term goal for private equity is developing enterprise value so that I can get a bigger exit and then use that money to then ultimately buy more assets that can preserve my wealth. But its core focus right now is cash flow. When I go buy a business, I'm looking for how can I make this a cash cow? And then I'm going to then take that cash flow and I'm going to use that to buy real estate, because if I'm getting all this cash flow from this business, I'm getting cash flow from my primary business. Guess what? The good news is I'm making money. The bad news is I have a tax problem. And so then I buy the real estate to then offset my tax liability. Yes, it's also going to create cash flow as well, but real estate is one of the greatest asset classes when it comes to depreciation, right? So what does that mean? That means I can own this asset that's growing in value, but the IRS is going to allow me to depreciate that asset over its useful life. And through certain tax strategies, I can even advance that depreciation. So if I'm buying real estate on a regular basis, ultimately every single year, I will have massive deductions to offset my active income so that while I'm building wealth, I'm not giving it right back to Uncle Sam in the way of paying taxes. So that is my wealth trifecta. Own a globally diversified portfolio of stocks. I'm primarily equities. I don't have any bonds in my portfolio, but that might not make sense for everybody. Then using that portfolio to borrow against it to get into private equity, and then ultimately using the cash flow from private equity to get into real estate, and then offset your tax liability, and then build wealth 3 times faster than traditional financial advice, which is why we call it the wealth building trifecta. So hopefully this was helpful for you. If you like videos like this, make sure you let me know in the comments, and make sure that you share this video with someone that could benefit from it in 2026. Make sure that you subscribe to this video. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that you want to see more videos like this. And remember, freedom is for sale if you're willing to pay the price. Peace.